Good morning, gang. Happy Wednesday morning. Okay, I teased this, if you will, on the live stream last night, but we had a lot of questions yesterday about the big, beautiful bill, or because of Chuck Schumer's pettiness, the act. Okay. A lot of people asked me what I thought about it. My impressions, the whole 9 yards, and I'm going to give you that. But if you want the 30-second answer, it's okay. It's not great. It's not beautiful, okay? But it's not an utter disaster either. What you really need to do is sift through all the lies that are being told and get down to the brass tacks on the whole thing, okay? And trust me, there are lies like crazy. I will give you some of them. The big one, there are absolutely zero, not a single penny cut to Medicare, okay? None. The Democrats are screaming all over the place that there isn't, okay? That's not in there at all. So if you are on Medicare, which basically pretty much anybody over 65 is, ain't no worries. Medicaid, on the other hand, yes. And the Democrats are going, you're going to take people off of Medicaid. Yup. The problem that they're not telling you, that they're trying to skirt the issue, is the ones that they are taking off Medicaid, the bill would, are illegals, which by current law are not eligible to collect it. However, when have we ever known the Democrats to follow current law? Okay. So this is just reiterating the fact that illegals are not allowed to get Medicaid. Okay. That's the first part. And the other thing they're taking is the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. Okay. And the bill says that anybody between the ages of 18 and 65 who is able-bodied and doesn't have kids at home needs to work to get Medicaid. And that could be being a job training program. That could also be being in school. That could be volunteering, all right? But no, sitting on their ass and playing video games and watching soap operas all day, or shit posting on Twitter, no, that doesn't consider themselves a job, okay? That needs to be fixed, okay? Food stamps. There is a work requirement, again, very similar to Medicaid, for food stamps. Again, I'm going to agree with this stuff. This makes sense. We have too many people in this country that just want to sit on their ass and do nothing, that are perfectly able to go to work, that don't want to. And in my life, I've known some of them, okay? I don't have to work. I just collect my food stamps and I get this and blah, blah. And y'all know how messed up the food stamp system is. You've got retirees who work their entire life and are getting $30 a month in food stamps, and you've got illegals. We've all seen the receipts from grocery stores. You know, cashiers are posted for EBT cards who are getting and have tens of thousands of dollars in balances on their EBT cards. That needs to be fixed. Nobody needs $10,000 worth of food. Okay, and you can't eat on $37. So, yes, we need to take care of Americans first. Citizens. I'll even go permanent residents, green card holders. Okay, fine, no problem. But we need to fix this. We need to get America back to working. The job market keeps getting better. We had numbers out yesterday that there were significantly more jobs available than more open jobs available, let's put it this way. But then, of course, you have all the people, I'm not doing that. I'm not working for that kind of money. Okay, no problem. You're not working for that kind of money. You're not getting free money either. Your choice what to figure out. You want to get the food stamps? I understand that job may be pay less than what your previous job pays. I've had that happen many times, okay? Y'all know my story. When I had just moved out to Utah after everything had collapsed out on the East Coast. And I went from a decent paying recruiting job to trying to find one. And I was working in a kitchen at the county jail, $10 an hour. I took the job. Why? Because it was a job. It was some income. And no, I didn't collect food stamps or anything like that while I was there. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying. And I got myself going until I had some income until I could find a professional level job that I was qualified for again. Okay. Sometimes that's what it takes. And you do it. There are tons and tons and tons and tons of people in this country who would go clean up dog shit in the city park if it was the only job available to them because they have some personal respect, for themselves and will go out and do it. There are plenty of people that think the world owes them a living. It's the Democrats, okay? There are some things I don't like. I do not like, by any means, this extra $3 trillion in spending they're into it. And they say, it's over 10 years. Right, okay. It's $3 trillion in spending over the next 10 years that they're going to tell us about, but please tell me the last time when we passed a omnibus bill like this is. Again, this is not a continuing resolution, guys. Just to remember this. This is not, we'll just extend out the last bill. That's a CR. Okay, this one is a new budget for all intents and purposes. So, tell me the last time they passed it, where all that money was earmarked that we sent to Ukraine. It wasn't. They just created more afterwards. So while this is taking care of the budget now, this is not an end-all, be-all. Trust me, Washington will come up with other stupid ways along the way to spend money. Print it, spend it, and go. Wherein lies our problem. The tax cuts. There's another big lie that is in here by the Democrats. They're robbing from the middle class and they're giving to the rich. It's a billionaire tax break. No, that would be 100% false. The billionaires are not getting any tax breaks whatsoever. None. Zero. This is specifically a tax break for the middle class. Now, some things are good. The no tax on tips, and there it is capped. Okay, that was one of my concerns about this. Is we're not just because all the companies that start doing say you're a tipped employee now or something like that. However, we can pay you less because you're making tips. That companies that pull that. Okay, but they capped it. And think about some of these fancy restaurants. I mean, uber fancy restaurants. Where you go in and drop hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for 4 people to sit down and have dinner. Think of all the places Gavin Newsom goes to eat, right? $1,000 bottles of wine on the table. Yeah, that's capped out. So I think it's $150,000. You're making $150,000 in tips. You're doing okay. I'm going to tell you that. That's more than I ever made in my life by 2/3. All right. You're making that in tips. Congratulations. There are some provisions for the no tax on Social Security. They didn't go far enough on that one. I want to remind everybody whose idea it was, because remember, Social Security used to not be taxed. Anybody want to take a guess at who the senator was who originally introduced the bill to tax Social Security? That was Joe Biden. Just in case you wanted to know that for a little bit of information. So when you're paying income tax and you're on Social Security and you want to know who to bitch about, that would be Potato Joe. He was the one that came up with that brilliant idea. And they still haven't completely fixed it. Okay. Extending the Trump tax cuts, they wanted to make them permanent. Apparently, they're only going to extend them for 4 years. Okay? That's a problem. That just means we're going to come back to this whole thing all over again when our next president, whoever that is in the White House. It'll be 2029, okay? So you're going to be a few months into somebody's first term, whoever it is, and they're going to have to deal with all of this. Wonderful. Okay. There are good things in there. There are bad things in there. That's typical compromise. You're not going to get everything you want. And like I said last night on the live stream, the analogy I've always used is this. Remember writing your Christmas list to Santa when you were a kid. Did you expect to get everything on the list? No. As long as you got some of it, you were happy. Welcome to exactly how Congress does things. This is what I want. This is what they want. In other words, what you want in the way of toys, what mom and dad have in the way of money, and that's where you meet in the middle. Okay, so that's what we're getting. Is it great? No. Is it decent? Yes. Now, here's where the problem comes in. And I want to explain this to you because I know sometimes I get into talking about some of these wonky terms and nobody gets it. All right. But I want to explain to you all the problems that we've got with this, and especially why I don't like the $3 trillion in extra spending. Okay. Let me give you this. As of right now, we are $37.51 trillion in debt. That's according to the U.S. National Debt Clock. Okay. As of right now, our debt to GDP rate, okay, how much we owe versus how much the combined everybody in the country makes combined between goods and services, we are running at 123.07% debt to GDP. That means if every penny that was made by every company, every penny that was earned by every citizen of this country was given to the government, we couldn't pay off the debt in a year. Okay, we'd be 23.07% short. That tells you what kind of trouble we're in. This is where I say over and over and over again why it's so important to have your money, your wealth, your savings, whatever, in hard assets. Because we are on a path of unsustainability. You've heard me talk about the dollar index a lot lately as it keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. We're down in the 96s, like I told you the other day. When do we explode or implode? All right. When does this not become sustainable? When do we owe too much money that the economy collapses? There isn't a hard and fast figure. Okay. We've actually been up at this rate before, or at least close. After World War II, the United States was at 119%. Okay. And then fortunately, for 30 years, we had 3 to 4% GDP, and we grew out of it. Okay, we grew out of our debt to GDP deficit that we were in. This is where you hear all the time. There's two ways that we can get out of debt. We can either grow out of it, or we can get it paid. I think we proved a couple of months ago that Washington has no intention whatsoever to get it paid. So our only option is to grow out of it. And that is what the BBB, Trump is counting on. It's a risky bet, but it is what it is. Okay. Now I'm going to give you this idea, the 123.07%. Oh, how do we know? Let me give you this. In 1960, all right, shortly after we were out of World War II, a decade or so, the ratio was 52.7. By 1980, okay, the debt to GDP ratio was 34.6. Okay. Even by 2000, we were at 57.2. We'd started borrowing our way up again. All right. Thank you, Bill Clinton. Yep. But from 2000 to 2025, we've gone from 57% to 123%. Well, it probably has something to do with it. For the last 25 freaking years, we keep Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, pick something, we keep pissing money away, all right? Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. This is what Doge was talking about, okay? How much money are we wasting? We're borrowing. I mean, this is how dumb it is, guys. We borrow it from China, so then we can give it back to China. So they keep their money and we just pay them interest. Imagine the logic of that, okay? But that's a lot of what we do. And I'm just using China as one example, but we do this with a lot of countries. All right. So this is why there are two ways, like I said, to get us out. We either grow out of it or we pay the debt. This is why Trump is screaming left and right for Jerome Powell to cut interest rates, because we have to, when you buy treasuries, right, that's the interest rate the government's paying you because you're loaning them money. They're borrowing it from you. Right? So with 30-year rates hovering around 5% right now, that's what we have to pay to lenders. Right? If it's down at 3%, gee, guess what? You're saving interest. No different. I'm going to refi my house. Why? Because rates went from 7% to 3%. Remember all that for the last 15 years? Okay. Why'd you do it? Reduce your payments. Exactly the same thing the government's trying to do. Okay. Jerome Powell, of course, is out there refusing to give Donald Trump a win and is playing Russian roulette with the future of the United States. So here's what happens, okay? And I'm just going to kind of give you this in a nutshell. How long is the U.S. economy sustainable? How long can we last? Now, there's no hard and fast figure, but the CBO says that when we get to 150% debt to GDP, we're in trouble. Again, remember where I just told you we're at 123. Now, we're paying $1 trillion in interest every 100 days. All right, so that would be $3.6 trillion a year. We're adding 3% or $3 trillion in this bill. Yeah, okay. If we start putting all the numbers together, how long does it take us to get to 150 trillion? Or I'm sorry, to 150%. You're looking at around 2028 to 2029. And we're at 150%. Now, can a country sustain being at 150%? It's possible. You go back to Greece. I mentioned this last night. Greece was at 177% in 2014 when their country collapsed. Okay. Greece is a lot smaller than the United States, of course. Greece doesn't have the industry the United States has. I mean, please tell me, when's the last time you've bought anything that's in your house that says made in Greece? You haven't, okay? But Greece also didn't have some of the other problems we have. Let's take a look at Argentina with their 2001 defaults. Argentina defaulted at 100% debt to GDP, less than we have, okay? Same thing again. When's the last time you bought something that says made in Argentina? All right. High debt combined with low growth and high interest rates is what causes this. Well, what do we have right now? We have higher interest rates, we have low growth, and we have high debt only getting worse. Those three things, which we have all of them right now, are what make up the building blocks of unsustainability. You'll always hear this, they'll point to Japan. Japan's been over 250% in debt to GDP. Okay, first off, let's take a look at the Japanese markets, the Japanese economy. They're hanging on by fingernails. Then let's look at the size of Japan versus the size of the United States. Okay, huge difference. Then let's also take a look at the Japanese economy versus what drives the Japanese economy, basically high-tech manufacturing, versus what drives the U.S. economy. Thanks to Bill Clinton, we're a service economy. That's working out real well, right? Okay. So this is what you got. The debt becomes unsustainable, and this is where the BBB comes in again. When the interest rate on the debt exceeds economic growth, it's when we wind up unsustainable, okay? Because debt compounds faster than the economy can expand. For example, what we're doing right now. Our debt is growing at 5% annually. That's treasury rates, okay? But GDP grows at 2%. You see what happened? It's the snowball effect. We're not making enough, as I said, 123%. That's just going to keep going up. You got a problem. Eventually, there are not enough cookies in the cookie jar. Eventually, there isn't enough money to pay the debt. This is the deal. You want to talk about GDP? This is where Trump says we got to grow out of it, which is possible, but you need a combination of things. The CBO for this year projects that we're going to have 2% growth. Deloitte estimates 2.6. Ernst & Young predicts 1.5. So yeah, let's go 2%. If we've got 2% GDP growth and 5% treasury bonds, there's a problem. We're like this. We need to get it like this or like this, okay? This is what we need. Powell to cut rates 3 points just to get us to here, and we need growth. We need people to go back to work. Again, I use 150%. That's not me coming up with a number. That's what the CBO says, all right? For a debt to GDP ratio above 150% becomes unsustainable if growth lags, rates rise, and deficits remain unchecked. What's going on? All three of them. Like I said, we managed this after World War II. We grew our way out of it with expansionism. That was it. There ain't a whole lot of expansionism to go on in the United States now. Selling private land ain't going to be enough, all right? We're at 123%. If 150 is the red flag, I'm worried at 130 because 130 could be manageable with, say, 3% growth and 2% rates, but certainly not with 2% growth and 5% rates. Parts of this bill are good, parts of this bill are bad. Ultimately, the one you got to worry about more than anybody else is yourself. I just want everybody to be as aware as possible, because the lies, the spin, the everything that comes out of the media isn't telling you the whole story. You need to understand this, and I understand economics is not exactly the most exciting topic, but do what you can to protect your money. Get it somewhere else. The dollar is going to collapse on the path we are on, guys. If Trump's right and we grow ourselves out of this, great. But that does not, until that $37 trillion is zero, we're always going to be looking at this problem. And maybe we don't see it in our lifetime, but think about your kids or your grandkids. This problem isn't going away until we pay our debt, just like anything else. You can make more money than the mortgage payment is, but you're never going to own a house until that mortgage is zero. That's what Rand Paul or Tom Massey want. Unfortunately, the two of them have nobody working with them, so they've just become obstructionists. There's a lot of things they're right on. The way they're going about things is completely wrong. Standing in a corner and pitching a hissy fit doesn't do you any good. Start coming up with solutions. The BBB, it's something to try. Will it work? I don't know. Maybe. But I can tell you this, if we don't do anything, we're doomed. Pinball out.